Welcome to the next episode of the Existential Files. Now, this one is slightly different. This is a conversation that Matt and I had in a car that started off as a conversation but became a podcast. So, hope you find it interesting. Enjoy.
Yes, I just sometimes feel the question, do you believe in God? For me, I'd go, yeah, depends what you mean by God and believe and in and you and what. So, yes, those kinds of questions about what's your take on stuff.
But I agree with what you're saying. But then I also think that that everybody understands what we're doing. It's like, everybody understands what you mean by, Santa Claus, or everyone understands what you mean by hypnosis. Do you know what I mean? And it's in a way.
I'm not sure. I'm not completely sure.
But
I think any of those terms, from Santa Claus to hypnosis, you could easily unpack and explore and discuss, but in a meaningful, deep, yet kind of hopefully understandable way to say, well, do you believe in hypnosis? Well, what do you mean by hypnosis?
But that's not what I'm saying. I think what I'm saying is on a very shallow level, I think we all can agree, if I ask somebody, pretend you're hypnotized, or I'm going to hypnotize you now, I think everybody kind of understands what they mean. Whether we have different opinions about what that might be, or what that phenomena is, or what's going on there, yes, we can debate it till the cows come home. And I know that everybody has slightly different takes on it. But I think everybody kind of has an idea. And then say, well, I think kind of everybody understands what you mean when you're asking the question, do you believe in God? Do you believe in an afterlife? When you die, what happens? I mean, I think that's a pretty straightforward question. What your answer is, whether you do have a belief, whether you do want to share that, whether you want to say, well, okay, I don't think we're alive to die in the first place. Yeah, that's fine. But I think we all understand what it means to ask the question.
Yes.
On a shallow level.
No, everything to what you said, absolutely yes. And I think we'll find out when we ask people. It's like if you ask me the question, I'd be unsure of what my answer would be, as in, I wouldn't be a yes or no kind of question. Because that's what's interesting about it. That's what becomes an interesting interview or discussion, is that we then explore this idea, what starts off as a simple sounding question, such as, do you believe in God? I'd have to go, okay, then, what do we mean by God? Do you mean by a supreme being, creator of the universe, somebody who we typically represent, or someone, then, if I said then someone who we typically represent as a man? Do we talk about just some kind of divine creator? I mean, I can talk about how beliefs shift all the time and are influenced by experience.
No, I think
I'm questioning. I'm agnostic. I'm uncertain. I feel that anybody who gives an opinion, it's an opinion.
Well, of course, it's an opinion, but
so on.
Is there intelligence? Is there intelligence that directs the universe? Was the universe intelligently created? Did intelligence come before the universe, or is intelligence something that comes as a consequence of the universe? Does it come out of complexity of the universe, or does intelligence direct the existence of the universe? I mean, I think in some ways that's almost the simplest way of saying, I think if you're on the one side, if you believe that intelligence came first, the thought came before the action, then I think you believe in God. And I think if you believe that, intelligence comes out of, an unintelligent universe, then you don't believe in a God.
Fine. And that's quite a nice way of unpacking what we might mean, or what you might mean by that's me meaning believing in God or not. And in some ways, it comes back to this idea, do you fundamentally believe there is a point to any of all this, where that point might be? It was created, say, by intelligence of some notion, or is it whatever process that happens to be here beats me and we're stuck with it, I suppose, and everything that's followed on since just happens to be a manifestation of not quite randomness, but a chain of events.
I mean, is this a podcast? Because I'm kind of feeling like we've already.
This is what I mean. I know, and I start getting notions by time. I said I'm now on the motorway. I'm thinking, 10 minutes before I've stopped. But absolutely, you haven't got.
Well, why don't we just?
You haven't got an end point.
Well, I mean, I'm happy to just kind of say, welcome. You catch Matt and I discussing, what it means to ask the question, do you believe in God, or do you believe in something or whatever? And I think we're debating to some, because I'm interested in I'm interested in why you don't believe, or why you're not an atheist. That's an interesting question. Why? I think we lost you. Or Carolina. Oh, wait, hold on. We lost you.
Feels like, as I swore.
We lost you when I was asking the question. So,
did you hear my response, which is, sounds like you sometimes ask it in a kind of way, well, why are you not an atheist, for goodness sake? I actually said, why are you not an atheist, for fuck's sake? I think because I am, and you should be an atheist.
No, look.
So in answer,
everyone can believe whatever they want.
I think I would always tend to describe myself broadly as agnostic, and then I want to explore, well, am I understanding that term correctly? As in, I feel as though any set of beliefs, any sense of like, well, I believe this to be the case or to not be the case, and quite vehemently and quite firmly, is, well, it's very much a belief based upon, has to be based upon experience, largely, because what else can we base anything upon?
I mean, the thing is, for me, for example, I mean, let's bring it back to some humor. I am agnostic about incest, right? Consensual incest, right? If a mother and a son who are above the age of consent want to engage in sexual relations, I have no moral, I'm agnostic to that. It doesn't bother me. It's a personal opinion that two adults engage in. Now, I know that other people are absolutely horrified by the idea of related individuals engaging in sexual relations. And as I say, as long as it's consensual, I haven't got a problem with it. So it isn't that I have a problem with saying, I'm agnostic about something. The thing is, for me, is that, I think if you look...
okay. Leaving this, I think I need to go, because I'm driving at the moment. I can't quickly consult something.
Right.
Do we make sure we have a clear, shared, so-called correct understanding about the term agnostic? Because in some ways, people might use the term agnostic as in, I have no strong opinion on the matter either way. I don't believe one thing or another. And is that what we mean by agnostic? Is that how it's used when we're talking about a kind of religious belief, or a sense of agnostic about the existence of, in quotes, God? I often felt as though it has this term about, well, I don't believe in God, I don't not believe in God strongly, and there's a sense of being in a position where I'm never clear where we could really strongly come down on one side or the other. So that's why I'd want to go, let me have a quick look in the dictionary, an understanding of what is the actual agreed consensus definition of the term agnostic.
Well, I can, Googling it now.
Yeah.
An agnostic is one who believes it is impossible to know anything about God or the creation of the universe, and refrains from commitment to any religious doctrine.
Okay, so in that way of defining, I would be comfortable describing myself as agnostic. I then query the idea of impossible. Is it impossible to? But it's at very least, it feels as though anything beyond, that classic leap of faith. You have to believe in something which you cannot see, you cannot...
Oh, you broke up again.
Describe themselves as so-called believers. Describe it as knowing. A sense of knowing something to be the case.
Right, you broke up again. I'm not entirely sure how well I'm going to be able to do that.
This may not be a real one. Absolutely, this may be more of us chatting away. Which is fine. Let's just fucking. You've got podcasts set aside. This is still allowing us to kind of generate more sources of topic. Even just knowing about this idea of what does it mean to believe in God, believe, and why not? Is it important to believe or not believe? What does it mean to be agnostic or atheist, or to have a religious belief? Because most people, I think, who come around to, again, this is my experience or my lay understanding, many people who have a religious belief, a clearly defined one, are ones where it's brought up through some kind of culture.
Sure.
And for example, my cultural upbringing is one where it has been, a-religious. In that classic C of E, I'm Church of England, therefore, by definition, I have no religious beliefs. I don't go to church. My parents didn't go to church. I think my dad's dad was quite heavily religious. And therefore, my dad became quite almost responsive against it, thinking, well, I don't really kind of buy into religion, because having a father who was quite almost, I think he was quite involved with a church. So our whole sense of where we are with our religious beliefs tend to be largely culturally determined. Are you there?
Sure. Well,
so therefore, sure. It's not a case that whereas others would say, well, if you come to a belief through experience or through reason or through whatever way to say, well, I'm forming this belief based upon my own exploration of something, or religious experiences that people have, spiritual experiences they describe as such. They to me tend to be more interesting than someone says, oh well, I am this particular, I'm Muslim, largely because I've been brought up in that cultural context, and those have been the religious doctrines that I'm now familiar with. I go, well, yeah, that's interesting as well, but you're learning a certain way of seeing the world based upon teachings, based upon delivery of material, rather than coming to your own decisions or thoughts or feelings.
I mean, the difficulty is that what would make you change your mind? Do you know what I mean? And one of the things that, I hope to do in the podcast and in our discussions is to present some arguments that I find very persuasive as to the non-existence of a deity, or the fact that, there is no meaning in the universe apart from the meaning we create between each other. And to say, show me any evidence whatsoever for a God or for an intelligence that's beyond the meaning we create, and show me why it's not, God is not a redundant hypothesis, And if the only way that anyone can respond to me is that you require a leap of faith, well, I'm afraid the idea that something is true in the face of any evidence whatsoever, and that I have to therefore disregard all evidence to the contrary, and therefore that's how I'm going to come to the realization of some kind of God. It's never going to happen. So there either has to be some very good reasons or evidence for, or rebuttal to the evidence I'm going to present or have presented, or it's just not going to happen. And from my perspective, having looked at a lot of the evidence and a lot of different levels of evidence, whether it's, Big Bang, whether it's the beginning of life, whether it's the beginning of humanity, whether it's, the nature of consciousness, the nature of existence, the nature of belief, the nature of religious belief, I just don't see any evidence for a deity at all. So, I mean, these are things that we can ask other people. These are things that we can discuss between ourselves.
Well, I think that's why I think the value would be having others who would be able to argue, if need be, or put forward arguments that helps, what's the word? I don't want to say contradict that, but, present the opposite side of it. Say, well, how about this way of thinking of the world? Because I don't feel I'm able to do that. Some would say, that the existence of the universe is evidence, or so-called evidence. They may not use that term. And I recognise that you would say, well, everything within the universe and what's happened can be explained without the need of suggesting some kind of so-called, in quotes, divine intelligence. So I can get that. So the question I would come back, and I suspect whether or not a religious person may argue, saying, well, but the question we often explore is, well, why does something exist versus not existing? And that's where sometimes the theoretical physicists will say, oh, that's not an appropriate question to ask. Or what came before the Big Bang? Oh, that's not an appropriate question to ask. Well, I'm asking it. Why does something exist? And someone would say, okay, well, whatever this God type thing might be, if that was something, the intelligence that created it, yes, the next question becomes, okay, well, what is this God type thing? In what way does it or he or it or notion exist? And what created that? Question to ask. Well, why do we have such a thing as existence? Why are we faced with this experience each day of waking up? Blah, 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 blah. Why?
And I mean,
it's all the why questions.
And I think that, I mean, you and I have discussed this before, and again, we'll discuss it again in the future as well. I mean, one of the questions is, do why questions apply to natural objects like the universe? It's you walk into a library and books mean something. I think I said this at the very beginning of the podcast, or a nihilist doesn't walk into a library and ignore and deny the existence of the library, or deny the existence of the books. I walk into a library, I see lots of meaning. The question is do I look into the universe and see a library, or do I see no meaning whatsoever? And for me, I'm not entirely sure whether why questions apply to the universe. The question of why does the universe go to the bother of existing? Yes, I mean, it's a question that irks me. It is a whole lot of effort for nothing. And
you can see why some people then would invoke, the idea of God and whatever else that goes along with it, in order to try and address that question, even if it's not a satisfactory one.
I don't find it.
And there are. No, I know you don't, and I'm not sure I do. Especially when it's these kind of world religions that go, well, we've now developed over thousands of years this system of way of exploring and having a sense of God, worshipping, responding in a way, acting in accordance with, and that's the way some people deal with that, saying, oh, there has to be some point to it. This is the point I'm creating, and this is the way which I'll live my life based around it. And I can understand why people would do that as a human endeavor, and why you would say, yeah, well, the fact that that's just one of many ways of trying to make sense of it, there's nothing that suggests it's a right way. And there's plenty of arguments that might say, well, you don't need to invoke that in order to for a universe to exist and to understand why things are the way they are. Yet it doesn't necessarily. None of these things come with an understanding of, well, still, why exist rather not exist? And to say, well, I don't think it's a question that applies. Well, if I've asked a question, why can it not apply?
Well, I think that's like saying, just because my dick fits in it doesn't mean I can't fuck it.
Yeah, but this is why why did you then suddenly throw it into like a kind of, let's talk about dicks and fucking or incest? Why is that meant to be a way of kind of making it lighthearted? Let's do a few knob gags, shall we?
But I totally understand, because I do find why the universe. Let's take the multiverse, right? If there are, infinite numbers of universe, then the universe is doing the same thing over and over again. We are having this conversation in another universe, but it isn't us, because we have no connection to that universe. But there are us and other creatures and other things. It all seems an awful lot of effort. For what? Because the universe does not seem to be a life. If you say to me, okay, God creates the universe to produce life, okay, that's what somebody says to me. Why do you, if I look at the universe, I do not see a lot of life. The nearest planets that are habitable are, say, 4 light years away, which means to get there, you have to be traveling at the speed of light for 4 years, right? Well, it's just not possible. We're never going to get to the nearest planets with probes or with ships, right? And so we're basically in our own little sterile environments. We're in a Petri dish, aliens are in a Petri dish. Why did God, if he was using the universe to make life, why make it, surely God could make it a different way. Surely God could have one flat plane. There's the Garden of Eden. There's the giraffes. There's the whales, all happy, living together. We're having a great time, right? And what I see is, the universe started in a big bang, and it's an explosion cooling down. That's what the universe is. It's an explosion that's cooling down. And as it passes through the transitions of cooling, it comes together into due to the action of gravity and other forces, and it clumps into bits and pieces, and sometimes those bits and pieces create order that can, from a while, result in intelligence. But eventually, the order that we see will, entropy will dissipate as the universe cools down more and more. Why? So what you're telling me, or a theist is telling me, that God could only create the universe that way? Because I don't think that's true. I think that's a spurious argument. And so,
I'm with you on that one.
And so, you know, if God is a super intelligent, super powerful being, he can create the universe however he wants. But of course, he made it this way because you can only believe in God. God only wants creatures that believe in him on faith. Forget all the asteroids and killing people and murder and death and mayhem, misery. You only get to heaven. He's only pleased if you believe in him for faith. I mean, this is just, I mean, it's a story that just doesn't ring true. Why? And, you know,
yes,
again,
you're asking the same questions. That's we're both asking the same questions.
But for me, why the universe being a natural object that has no why behind it, that exists just because it exists, and you know is energy, and as I said before, you know, perhaps doesn't exist. I mean, one of the things we talked about off camera, off air is you know, illusions. You know, and if the universe is one thing at the same time, it's neither existing nor non-existing, you know. And again, I find that if I need some intellectual satisfaction from this, you know, thinking, then for me, I find it intellectually satisfying to think, well, maybe the universe neither exists nor, you know, doesn't exist, in the same way that we neither exist or don't exist. And in a way, I find that far more intellectually satisfying than the idea that God said, hey, let's have an explosion 13 billion years ago. Let's watch it cool down. Earth is going to be there. I've just got to wait 13 billion years. So he goes away for a few billion years, comes back. Oh, dinosaurs, I'll just get rid of those. Blah, blah, blah. I mean, it's just ludicrous, personally.
Absolutely. I'm with you on that one. And that's why I think to continue a debate of that nature, discussion, you would need somebody who's willing to topics openly and is doing it from a religious point of view. And is willing to explore those kind of bigger questions.
I mean, are we interested in? Because I mean, one of my bugbears is the idea that any other person on this planet has a special insight into the universe. You know, because I see people, especially religious people, who portray themselves as having some kind of special insight, special knowledge. You know. And I'm sorry, but the Dalai Lama has no fucking insight, has no special discourse with the universe. And so, you know, I'm happy to talk to, you know, physicists who understand, you know, the Big Bang, or you know, psychologists or philosophers who are interested in the nature of consciousness or what it might be to exist. Again, I find those questions interesting. But the idea that somebody who is a theist, who has special insight into the universe that we don't have access to because we are not part of their religion, or we don't have, you know, by all means, go to the high street, sign up for Scientology. Ron Hubbard wants your, you know, £1 million, and then he'll tell you the secret of the universe. Don't buy into that one little bit.
Well, I at least disagree from this perspective of, I think anybody's opinion is as valid as anybody else's, even if it's on. I would like to discuss it with them in an ideal world. I'd like to say, well, someone says, okay, well, I either represent this particular religious viewpoint, and I can actually talk it through openly and explore it and be questioned and challenged and whatever upon it, without a sense of, oh, well, now you're questioning my religious belief and that's religious intolerance. Well, no, it's not. It's about a genuine, utter wish to understand the point of stuff, why stuff is here, what the argument would be for it, against it, and so on, similar to what you're saying. And if someone's able to say that, I would have as much time for that, even if it's Scientology, because I'm interested in exploring, well, what do you believe in that? What is the belief? And I can go, yeah, well, that to me sounds like absolute bullshit. And isn't it interesting how it's evolved, how it's developed, who came up with it, all the ideas behind it? But as long as, you know, because you're putting Scientology alongside any other so-called world religion, or I like actually the phrase you use, people who believe they have, or have a sense of, a discourse with the universe. But I just think that's an interesting idea. There are people out there that'd be worth listening to and talking to find out what it is they think and believe in order to explore it, rather than saying, no, if you're that kind of person, not interested. I'll only talk with people who are philosophers, scientists, psychologists, whatever.
No, right. Now, that's not entirely what I said, okay? Because, I mean, I've been watching a wonderful program, absolutely amazing program about Scientology just been broadcast in America about people who have left Scientology. So it's about how Scientology works, what it's like to be in Scientology, and what it's like to leave Scientology and have your belief questioned and say, you know, I was a vehement believer in Scientology and now I absolutely am not. And it's been an amazing experience watching it, and I suggest you watch it. I think it's Leah Remini's Against Scientology. And I think that people who believe in religion or whatever it's interesting if the questions we're interested in are, you know, what is it to be a believer, what is it, you know, why do they believe, etc. What I'm saying is that I don't believe that anybody like that has a special, you know, has special knowledge that only they have, in terms of the universe is not communicating to one person, whether it, you know, and giving them the you know, those people the secret. That's what I don't agree with. So, you know, whereas, you know, discourse and debating these things, that's fine. You know, we can have a discussion with anybody. I mean, I'm happy to have a discussion with anybody. But what I don't have a lot of time for is people who think that they have special understanding, you know.
And on that note,
yeah, I mean, I think that you know, if people are interested in this side, I'm happy for people to listen to this discussion.
So, yeah, if you could make some sense of it in terms of the audio dropping away and so on.
Whatever. I'm sure people will be interested. So thanks for the discussion, Matt.
Yeah. And if not, they won't listen, which is fine. So until next time.
Goodbye.
And we'll be more organised. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.